Comic Clan, and welcome to Comics in the Cross, the greatest streamers you have never heard of. We are here on a Friday morning. Who'd have thought it? Something completely new, completely different. This has thrown my week off completely, just to be honest. Like, I'm not used to this at all.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, CV, thank you so much for showing up. CV in the chat saying that's a great intro video. Thank you so much. That literally was something thrown together from whatever streams we had at the time to make a countdown video. But we are here for a very special episode of the podcast today because our guest is a very hard man to track down and get a hold of at a specific time, between how busy he is, how hard working he is, and the fact of he is 8 hours ahead of us.
Just a little bit of time.
So we have an amazing guest today, and if I mispronounce your name, please let me know. But we've got Ahmed Al-Ameen on the show with us today, the creator of a brand new indie comic called the Epics of Enkidu. An amazing story which I got the opportunity to review for the Infinity Bros. If you want to check that out, you can head over to their Daily Snap to look at my review of it there. But we will be jumping into an amazing conversation with him today, talking about the Epics of Enkidu and his inspiration behind it, as well as raising autism awareness through it. But Ahmed, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me, and I'm so sorry I got you sitting early in the morning. I apologize, but the time difference is,
It's fine. I've got my coffee right here. I'm all good.
Yeah, we're good.
We'll make it.
I really wish the Earth was flat. Sometimes I really wish the Earth was flat, so we can all have the same time zone.
And
It's not flat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I spoil that for you?
But on the show for 5 minutes and you've already broke Nitro's heart. It's like shattered his world.
Dang it.
But yeah, thank you so much for being here today. This is an absolute honor.
So the honor is mine.
So yeah, before we jump into the comic itself, it'd be great if you could tell people just a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you are, your kind of background, so we know like where you're coming from in writing this new comic.
Well, my name is Ahmed Al-Ameen. You actually pronounced my name right, and you're actually the first to pronounce my name right.
Oh, awesome!
I'm actually originally from Iraq. From the city of Nasiriyah, where the oldest story found in human history, the Epic of Gilgamesh, actually took place. It's
cool.
Yeah, and I actually lived most of my life in Kuwait. We my family, they just stayed in Kuwait, which is a couple of hours drive from Iraq. Most of my life I've been really into books and reading, and I love going into different worlds, because honestly I had a very boring childhood. And I remember in college, as the first time I was interested in writing, when I met a group of indie filmmakers. Actually, they were trying to make some kind of a movie taking place in a student hostel, and it was a fun project, and I gave them some of my ideas, and they were really interested, and I was like, maybe I should write something.
Awesome.
And then that's how I started to create stories. Because I bounced from many countries, studying at the same time while writing. I lived in Kuwait, I lived in Emirates, I lived in Egypt, and just a couple of years ago, I was living in China, where I met my wife, and where I actually came up with the idea of the Epics of Enkidu while I was in China.
Awesome.
So yeah. Also, my Chinese name is Hamida.
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 It has no meaning whatsoever. They just use some letters so they can write your name, so they just choose any sound that's similar to your name, and
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's like, that sounds close enough. That'll work, So like,
just get it.
So yeah, it sounds like you were very much into the sort of creative process and stuff from fairly young age. It's like you were a big book reader. You got into, working with this group and doing kind of films and stuff. And so where did your journey take you from there then? Because obviously that's a very different path to all of a sudden deciding to write a comic book.
No.
Oh yeah, definitely. I wasn't very interested in comic in 2014, I want to do some motion comic, which is on my YouTube channel at the moment. The YouTube channel is called off underscore epics, or off epics. Anyhow, at the time, I was trying to find someone who's interested in drawing for me. I wrote the story and everything, and at the time, no one wanted to work for free, and I wasn't. I was a student at the time. I didn't have a lot of cash, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it myself. So I started to teach myself how to draw, and it's really difficult. YouTube tutorials are, I'm really sorry to say that, but are really annoying. Really, you start with a couple of lines and suddenly you have a masterpiece in front of you. And you're like, what happened? So anyhow, that's how I just started to draw, to learn how to draw, and yeah, it was difficult, but eventually I mastered it, and that's how I learned how to draw. Within a couple of years, but. When did I want to do this comic, the Epics of Enkidu? It was because of my dear nephew. He was the one who inspired me. Actually, um, he happens to be an awesome autistic kid, and we have a very special connection. He looks exactly how I looked when I was a kid. We look at the same. We're like
Wow.
twins. If you show
Yeah.
him a picture of me when I was a kid, he's gonna think it's him. So yeah, he keeps saying that's me. So anyhow, um, I was always impressed how he never loses his balance. Like most kids, when he's growing up, like when he's about to fall, he just balances himself very quickly, and I like that. And I always think, wow, maybe he thinks so fast, and it makes him. I was like, just brainstorming at the time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so maybe that he thinks so fast, the world around is too slow. That's why he's interacting differently. I was just trying to figure him out. And because I really love him, I want to do something for him, to do the comic. But the idea didn't come until later on, actually. When I was, revisiting the Epic of Gilgamesh. When I was reading the Epic of Gilgamesh, you know, the, for the people who doesn't know that story, the Epic of Gilgamesh is what the National Geographic History magazine called the world's first action heroes,
Hmm.
where you have two guys, Gilgamesh and Enkidu. So while I was reading that story, first of all, I felt Enkidu was more heroic, because in our perspective, like Gilgamesh was a tyrant king. He did a lot of bad things. He killed needlessly. Even his heroic adventures are meaningless. But Enkidu kept Gilgamesh in check. He's the guy who changed him from a bad guy to a good guy, and I loved how they described him in the epic. They describe him as someone who's different from society, who's an
Hmm.
outcast, and it just suddenly clicked. When I just read about him, wow, he could be autistic, like that, and I decided to do create the epics of Enkidu, which features a hero with autism, and it
Hmm.
sounds cool when you say it's a sequel to the oldest story found in human
Yeah.
history.
Oh yeah, it's a great pitching point for
It's a great
the
tagline. Yeah.
comic. Yeah,
Yeah.
you
So
know,
yeah, that's how I started. That's how I delved into the comic world. This story.
awesome. Yeah, because like that is the intriguing thing about it. Like, because coming from my perspective on it, like I'd never heard of the book. I didn't see it promoted. I didn't see the Indiegogo or anything like that, which obviously was a massive success because obviously the book was made, so you were obviously
Oh,
got a
huge. Yeah.
success with it. I literally didn't hear about it until Isaac from the Infinity Bros reached out to me and asked me if I'd like to write the review on it. Because obviously it's talking about a character who's got autism, which is something very close to my heart. My oldest son, as most of our viewers know, is autistic. He was diagnosed 2 years ago. So it was something I was very intrigued to check out because, you know, disabilities, if you want to say it that way, are things that are not often covered in comics still.
Hmm.
One of the ones I herald as that is still people like Daredevil and Marvel and things like that are very few like characters who represent these people in society. So I was very intrigued by it, and I had to do a little bit of research on it because like even like Enkidu, I didn't know the character name. Like I've heard of the story of Gilgamesh, and different parts, but I didn't know the character of Enkidu, and it wasn't until I started doing a bit of research and then like kind of went back and read the comic with that research, that I'm like, oh, okay, this is all starting to kind of fit into place now. And that's where I had to write the review from, was like learning little aspects that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like, you know, wherever it's promoted, it goes into some of this detail and who he is, and you know, where Enkidu's coming from. And but I got none of that going in. But that stuff is so important for the telling of this story, and I found it really intriguing that you married these two things together. You took, you know, the Epics of Gilgamesh and married that into autism, because Enkidu is a very interesting character to do that with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, he's represented as an outcast of society. He doesn't fit within societal norms, which is almost like a perfect explanation of somebody with autism.
Definitely, yeah. That's how it clicked to me. And by the way, you just gave me another reason, which I forgot to mention, why I did this. Because not so many people know about our Mesopotamian history, you know, and about Mesopotamian myths. So it's just another way to, you know, for me to spread awareness about also our history and culture, you know, which is very rich. You know, writing actually came from Mesopotamia, and if you read all these books about the myth of creations, and how they actually, the reason why they found the Epic of Gilgamesh, because there's a guy called John Smith, in the British Museum in 19 mid 19 something, I forgot the date, but he found a script describing the flood, that's similar to the Great Flood, and he thought it's like an accurate historic reading, an old 2,000-year-old historic writing about the Great Flood. You know, so there are so many actually stories that came from Mesopotamia uh, that are actually influenced by a lot of things and events that happened. So
Yeah,
that's why I really wish to spread that thing.
yeah, absolutely, and I think that's the amazing thing, because like you said, like I've heard of Gilgamesh, like I know
Mm-hmm.
the name. If you say the name Gilgamesh, I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
I'm aware of this story from, you know, Mesopotamian history, but like I couldn't have told you what the story was.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think about, because like you think of like all these ancient cultures and ancient stories, like, you know, stories from like, you know, ancient Greece and ancient Rome, or like, you know, about like Hercules and stuff and different things. And you know, it's, you go into all these different cultures, and it's like there's so many amazing stories, but yet Mesopotamia's got this amazing history to it that we really don't know, that it isn't talked about as much, but there's not really a reason not to.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, and it's actually good because it's very rich. You know, it's not like there are few information about. No, I mean, if you really look at it, they have a lot of things, a lot of stories, a lot of epics, a lot of poems. The oldest written, you know, written text found was actually a poem written by a woman uh, from Sumerian, who's actually probably was a black woman actually. So this is like the oldest thing found. You know, there are lots of things, and that's why I'm surprised not so many people know about it, and that's why I want to push this comic to tell people, yeah, see, we have something different. You know, I want people to know something different from Iraq, other than the negativity you hear in the media.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely, yeah,
that's what,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
because I feel like, yeah, like especially from where, you know, you are, like even the comic itself is set in Iraq. You know, it's like it's set in that area, and like you said, yeah, there is so much negativity around that area now. It's almost held up as this area of, like, as soon as you say Iraq, it's like people, Iraq, Iran, anything around that area, like people start to, you know, their hackles go up and they start to get very negative
yeah,
viewpoints.
actually, I've experienced that. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
experienced that. Like, I remember when I was traveling in China, and there were a group of kids, and they asked me, they were from America, you know, and they asked me, "Where are you from?" And I was like, "From Iraq," and they were like surprised. "Oh my God, it's an Iraqi guy," you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because everyone
I've,
thinks Iraq, everyone thinks of, you know, the war in Iraq, and everyone,
Yeah.
especially here, like living in the
yeah,
States, everyone thinks about the war in Iraq,
definitely,
and you know, it's like it's all tied in of like what happened with the war there and with 9/11 and all this stuff is all like tied in together, and it's all like
Mm-hmm.
molded together, even though half of that had nothing to do with Iraq.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
It resonates.
but it's like it's all tied together in this negativity. It's almost kind of like, even still today, like you mentioned Germany, and one of the first things you still think of is World War II and the Nazis. You know, it's just there's this like negativity around it. It's like, but it's so undeserved, especially in today. It's like, you know, like you said, there's so much great history and great culture there as well, and it's really awesome to see that you brought that forward into the Epics of Enkidu and to tell this story.
Yeah, like Cross said, like I've heard of Gilgamesh and I've heard the Epics of Gilgamesh before, but I've never read them. And like after reading this, it made me like super interested in like getting a copy of that, maybe reading through it.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. You should. You should. It has a lot of actually. The hero's journey is really well played out in the Epic of Gilgamesh. They even teach that in a lot of universities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, they along with the Odyssey and the Homeric epics, they teach them together sometimes. Yeah, so it's definitely. I really recommend to anyone who's hearing this. I really recommend reading the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's really an interesting read.
So, using that culture to transfer into the comic, then what made you think of? What was the kind of selling point of I'm going to write, you know, a sequel to Gilgamesh? I'm going to take this character of Enkidu and, you know, because like telling a story about autism awareness and telling a comic, especially for, you know, your nephew, it's like there's so many different routes you could have gone.
Yeah.
You know, especially in today's age where like superheroes are such the major thing in themselves. Like you could have gone full blown like superhero story or all this. What made you decide to go Enkidu and to tap into this history? Because that's a massive amount of history around Gilgamesh and Enkidu to try and wrap in.
Well, definitely. There are so many reasons actually. I mean, Gilgamesh and Enkidu are really actually, if you read the stories, they look like superheroes. But the reason why I really wanted this epic, uh, you know, because I really wanted a lot of materials to write about, and the oldest version of the Epic of Gilgamesh was dated to 2,500 BC. So I have
Wow.
around
Wow.
more than 2,000. Yeah, so I have more than 4,000 of and 500 years of history to manipulate.
Yeah.
You know, so many materials I can use to write the story. You know, I can write because I'm also including different cultures and different historical, different myths in the epic epics of Enkidu, not necessarily from Mesopotamia, but a little similar to Mesopotamian stories. You know, so that's why I use this setting, this epic, not just because of the story of the epic, but because of also the age, how old this epic is. You know, I can you know like connect the story with the Cold War, with other things. You know,
Mm.
yeah, you
That's a
have a
good
lot of
point.
material to the with the French Revolution or whatever like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's why I wanted to do. And you know, whenever you check any historical myths or something like that, you can always find something, and I can use that in the story. You know, it's similar to Assassin's Creed. You know,
Yeah.
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 yeah, exactly. You can use anything because you have history as your background. You can use anything you want. You
You
know,
can
so
plug and play,
that's
man.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
can plug and play, so I can just you know just write a couple of notes and just you know check a couple of historical myths or whatever and just write it.
Yeah, that's
And go with it.
awesome. Like I never even thought
Yeah,
about that perspective
Yeah.
of
It's
like, yeah, you've
yeah,
got like, you know, over 4,000 years of history between, you know, the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Epics of Enkidu, and it's like you can basically tap into anything in that you want or need to. There's this whole massive world and time to play with, and like, that's kind of amazing to think about, actually.
yeah, definitely. And the History Channel too helps a lot. You know,
I can believe it.
aliens, ancient aliens.
yes. I'm all about some aliens, man.
There we
Yeah.
go. Aliens for the future of Enkidu confirmed. Uh,
We'll see. I'm not gonna spoil a lot, actually. It's something I don't want. It's gonna be revealed in the third issue. Right now, we're finishing up with the second issue, so it's not. You're gonna find out soon. Hopefully.
yeah, so let's jump over to actually going into the comic a little bit more itself now. Before we do that, I just want to kind of shout out to the chat because chat has been going kind of crazy on the site here for people popping in. So thank you for everyone that's popped in, for Humor coming in with a lurk, and and also a subscription to the channel from Savage Selena Storm. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Welcome to part of the Stan clan of the Comic Clan. Thank you so much for that, and we appreciate that sub. And yeah, for anyone who missed us saying it out on social media, yep, this is a special episode of the podcast. Because trying to get Ahmed on at a certain time was very difficult to do. So
I'm sorry.
no, you are fine.
No, it's all good.
It's well worth it for the conversation. It's well worth it to get to talk about this, and this was the time that worked best. So here we are. We're here on a special day. So you get an extra episode of Comics in the Cross this week because we're still doing our Sunday show. So, so yeah, to delve into the comic itself, then. So, try to think of the right way to word this. So what was the process in the creation of the comic then? Because you had the background of you wanted to make it kind of a sequel to Gilgamesh. You make the Epics of Enkidu and follow Enkidu himself, who you'd already said is you felt was more of the heroic character to kind of follow. And then you're also trying to tie in this world of autism. So how did the creation process of the actual comic itself go from there? Like, how did you tie these together? And then even just the laying out of that first issue, which we both got an amazing look at and got to check out. How was your process in designing the layout for this and where this story was going? Obviously, we don't see a massive amount of the story in the first issue because it's a first issue and it is the introduction to the world.
It's
like a teaser.
Prologue, I'm just setting the mood, just telling who I'm showing it just a little bit of his power, and then little by little we'll move on. So the thing is, I'm gonna reveal something actually. The Epics of Enkidu. I was intending to reveal the actual title after the first arc finish. It was actually a different title. I was gonna give it a different name, like Demon or Jinni or something like that. And at the end of the arc, I revealed that he is Enkidu, But then I realized, not like you just said, not so many people know who's Enkidu, So if I reveal Enkidu, people will say, so?
Yeah.
So I just started, I remember I did some sketches by myself to try the story, and I put it on this free web comic site called the Drunk Duck or something like that, or the Duck web comic, and just to feel it out. And after that, I just decided to do it actually, and I thought, what, I'm gonna make it the Epics of Enkidu, so more people will be interested in it. Especially archaeologists and people who are into history. So how I actually did the comic, like I started the creative process is by looking for an artist. I found one who helped me for the Indiegogo campaign. He's the inker. I do the primary sketches and send it to him to explain the scene, the panels, and everything. And I do the coloring. I'm also the colorist in the comic and the letterer, to be honest.
Okay, so I didn't realize that you were actually the artist on it as well. Because I thought, on the comic, I thought it was like you were the writer, you had your artist, and then you were the colorer. So you actually done the initial sketches and stuff as well. You sent it to be inked, and then wow. So you've really put in everything to the Epics of Enkidu. You've literally went all in on this.
I will say, Ahmed, I want to say that I really dug the color scheme in the comic, especially when you're going into kind of Enkidu's point of view of how he sees things, like specifically near the train where he's seeing things kind of move in slow motion. It painted it in that picture that you could kind of visualize. It was really cool.
I'm really happy that you said in slow motion. I really wanted to feel like everything is suddenly happening in slow motion, and I really tried so many things, and eventually ended with this.
It really worked. It really came through. Yeah.
I'm really glad you said that. That it looks that really gives the slow motion, look. The coloring thing. I took some time to realize what works best, and actually after the Indigo campaign, my artist kind of quit, but I have some other guy who did a variant cover for me, and this guy, he showed a lot of passion for the project. He really loves the Mesopotamian history and that the superhero has autism. My artist Moiser Muniz, who is the penciler and inker in the comic, So we do it this way, I send him the preliminary sketches. He has a lot of experience, so sometimes he suggests alterations to the panels or whatever if it works, because I have a story to tell. If it works, it's fine. But I usually let him has his way if it works
Hmm.
for the story. If it doesn't, we don't. And he send them back to me, and I color it, and then I just stitch everything else, everything with each other. And yeah, this is our creative process. This is how we work with the epics of Enkidu.
So I have a question, Ahmed,
Sure.
and this might be getting into spoiler territory for future issues. So if it is, please cut me off. Feel free to cut me off. But for those of you who haven't read the Epics of Gilgamesh, like I know the gist of it. Like I know like the very very high level gist of the story. And spoiler warning for that story if you haven't read a 4,000-year-old text yet, like me. Um, but Enkidu basically gets killed by the gods for killing a bull, like a sacred like bull, right? Am I getting that right?
And I say he gets some kind of a curse or disease.
Yeah. Oh, curse. Okay.
No.
So I was
He
gonna ask.
actually he actually beats up the bull. He's the one
Okay,
who
got it, got it, got it. Okay, I was close. I was close. Um,
very close actually.
There,
It's
there was a
because
bull
he killed
involved.
that bull, because he
there's
defeated
a
that
bull.
bull.
I know there's a bull.
There's a bull. Yeah, a cosmic bull. Yeah,
Okay,
he's a
cool.
cosmic bull.
So do you like? I'm
Yeah.
assuming you explain throughout the story like how he came to be where he is right now. I
Yeah.
guess sort of. Okay, cool. That's awesome.
And I can tell it if you want, because it's not the main thing, in the story. And actually tell it's I think you can read it in the synopsis, if you go to the Kindle or the Comic House, or I'm not sure if it's on Comixology yet, but you can read that how he came back. But I can say it. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, actually, there are two scenarios where he either die or he just goes to the underworld. Either way, he goes to the underworld. He dies and go to the underworld, or he tries to fetch something for Gilgamesh in the underworld, and he doesn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
So so in
Yeah,
the story, how did I bring him back is because of something else.
Okay.
yeah, because I was gonna ask
Yeah,
about it because I think I read it in one of the promos. It was saying that like Enkidu returns from the underworld, but like
Yeah.
he's basically
exactly.
lost his memory. He doesn't know he is Enkidu in that
Okay.
initial
Yeah,
point.
that's a good thing, by the way. Everyone knows who he is when they find him out, but he doesn't know who he is, and it's very difficult to get through him because he's autistic. So that's another challenge in the story I placed. Like trying to tell someone who he is, and then he has to figure it out himself. But different language, different thing. It'll reveal itself soon. But anyhow,
Gotcha.
about the underworlds. I mean, what are underworlds? In our Mesopotamian, histories and everything, there is something called the Asu, which is in our logic is a doctor, and he always comes with a guy called Ashiba. It's a real thing, in Mesopotamia they have some kind of a medical people, comes with a guy called Ashiba. It's a witch doctor,
Okay.
you know, and there's a text explaining to kids to not go to dirty places because they have small demons that can go inside your skin and makes you ill and like that. So in
Hmm.
our logic, small demons are microbes. That's
Hmm.
what but they didn't have a name for that. That goes to your skin and
Okay.
whatnot. So what I'm trying to say, what used to be magic or gibberish or myth, it's today's science.
Hmm.
So I was thinking, what are underworlds? Could it be some kind of a out of time dimension
Hmm.
that
Oh.
anyone who goes there that is so messed up that a human mind cannot fathom. But if you have a special mind, you know, like Enkidu, maybe you can find your way out. So
That's
that's how I
interesting.
brought him back. Yeah,
That's
that's how I
super
brought him back.
interesting.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's.
thanks.
I try to think of a comment back to say back there. Like that kind of blew my mind. That like, whoa, that's a
Yeah.
really amazing way to think about it. Like that's a really cool perspective to take on like a kind of underworld. Like, yeah, that's really blown me away. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
a really cool idea. I'm like, yeah.
yeah. Actually, and it's gonna be revealed more in detail in the third issue. I'm not spoiling anything. These things I'm not very well explained, like I just explained, but it's actually in the synopsis. But in the third issue, you can understand what is the setting of the story, what is happening actually. So, and hopefully I'll blew what's left with you of your minds in the game.
I I'm definitely excited to check these other issues out.
Oh, thank
For
you.
anyone in chat that's listening into the podcast and isn't necessarily watching at the minute, I've dropped some links as well for issue 1 is available. We've got it on Comixology, on Amazon Kindle, and Comic Cause. And there are links in the chat. You can go and click on those and pick it up for yourself. I think it's only for a few dollars. It's not that expensive. It's just issue 1, and it's a chance for you to jump into the Epics of Enkidu as well. Like I said, the first issue is very much an introduction, but definitely go check that out. So.
And if you find the Epic of Gilgamesh, just buy that too. So you can
Yeah, if you're running around on Kindle and you find it, the Epics of Gilgamesh, grab that, and it's a prequel to this as well. There you go. You've got the prequel and issue 1.
Japanese animation called Gilgamesh or something like that. I don't know. You can check that out if you want. Why not? You know.
Hey, why not? Let's just pick.
See what the Japanese did with our epic.
That would be really interesting. Actually, I'm not gonna lie.
Looking it up now.
What a Japanese studio did with Gilgamesh, that'd be really interesting. But yeah, it honestly sounds like an amazing story, and obviously we're getting bits and pieces of it from you, and I don't want to delve too deep into the upcoming story itself because I don't want to jump into spoilers or anything. We want people to pick it up for itself. But one thing I did want to ask, so the Epics of Enkidu, is this planned to be an ongoing series, or do you have a set amount of issues, by issue 12 or something, I'm done, and that's going to be the Epics of Enkidu, that's going to be the whole story, or are you just going to write and go for as long as it can go?
Well, here's the thing. I already have a beginning, and you already read that, and I already have an ending. I wrote the ending. I know how everything will end. But like I mentioned before, I have more than 4,000 years of history between it. So I can write as many arcs and issues I want with many spin-offs and side stories.
Yeah.
I haven't decided how many arcs I'm gonna write with. I already planned the first 3 arcs.
Okay.
But how long? I mean, I haven't decided specifically how long it'll take. It's gonna be an ongoing series, definitely. I'm gonna add some spin-offs for a couple of characters. But I cannot answer this question now because it's really difficult when you have a lot of inspiration around you. You cannot say, "Oh, I'm gonna end it in 5 arcs or 3 arcs or whatever."
No problem. That's absolutely perfect. I was just curious because obviously, the Epic of Gilgamesh is very much this is the story, for us now, and I was just curious of is this going to be this is the set story of the Epics of Enkidu, and maybe move into some other stuff, or are you just going to take it as far as it can go? And it sounds like see what legs Enkidu has on it, how far you can.
I'm sorry. So it's just static. Can you ask me again? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
There's something wrong with the connection. Yeah.
Oh, apologies. No worries. But yeah, I was curious of is this going to be a standalone, or do you want to just see how far it can go? And it sounds like you're looking to see how strong it can stand on its own, and
maybe I'm gonna keep going according to how well it's received.
Yeah.
If I feel that people like it so much, and then they wanted to keep going, I'm gonna stretch it out a little. I have to end it. I cannot keep stretching it forever.
Yeah.
If somehow I started to feel like losing, I'm just gonna end it. And, I'm gonna reach to the end, and that's it. So yeah, and of course I'm having different projects I'm gonna work on in the future. I already planned to release something along the Epics of Enkidu, a different kind of story, which I'm gonna not talk about it right now, but it's already been planned.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we definitely don't want you giving away anything too soon for that. But if the other stories keep going like this for Enkidu, I'm definitely interested in continuing to pick it up and continuing to see where the story goes. It's so I'll definitely be checking it out because it sounds like it's a really interesting place to go.
As long as you're too interesting, I'm gonna keep fighting it for you guys.
Well, yeah,
That's enough
especially
for
with
me.
what you revealed about like how he came to be. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like like
thanks.
you've set up this story now. Like I need to see how we get there. I'm definitely need to check it out. So it's absolutely awesome. It sounds like an absolutely amazing story, and yeah, it's something I would definitely love to bring you back on the show at another point and delve into when we have more story behind it, like after the first couple of arcs, or if we start getting spin-offs, and to talk and delve more into it. Obviously, I don't want to push too hard with it being issue one. Um, but one thing I really noticed from at least the issue that was sent to me, I don't know if it's like that in the releases, but there's definitely a lot of like almost like spreads in the middle talking about
Yeah.
autism awareness, and how close it is to your heart, and um, and you already mentioned that your nephew is the one with autism, and he was like your inspiration for kind of doing a comic and delving into something that you weren't necessarily familiar with.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so obviously you're kind of hoping that this comic is going to help raise awareness. It's going to
Of course.
help kind of bring a bit more awareness to autism. And what would you like to see come out of it on that side? Like, what would you like to see the Epics of Enkidu accomplish in terms of autism awareness?
Uh, so two things I would say. I mean, acceptance and realization. Acceptance wise, I mean, obviously from the world, it's just to accept autistic people as what they are. Because I've seen my nephew when he goes to his taekwondo class or something. In the beginning, before some of the kids they mock him or whatever, but little by little they became more friendly because they started to know him more. So the
Yeah.
more you know about autistic kids, the more you understand them. You be kind to them, and help them. I just want to show people um, what it feels like to be autistic, to be different from in society. And also I want to show an autistic kid who hopefully reads the book to go over their challenges, to persevere. And the second thing I said, which is realization, is like what we are right now. I mean, we're talking right now in this Discord file online. So many things in this world, so many technologies. They won't be possible if it weren't for the autistic people. And this is true. For example, Einstein. He was very described as an autistic person. So many experts can read about him, and they can confidently say that he was autistic. Even Newton, he used to give lectures even if there is no one there. He is very focused, and his friend Haley always described him as odd. Steve Jobs also same thing. So many things in this world needs, and so many things that pushed humanity was because of people who have different point, who can look at things differently and solve them in a very unique way.
Mhm.
Like Temple Garden said, she's a very renowned scientist who has autism. She used to say, "Who think invented the first spear? Definitely not the guys sitting in the knickknacks sitting by the fire." So not only you should just accept him, but to honor them.
Yeah.
Every people who have autism, they should be honored, because they pushed humanity forward, without us realizing it. I had to do a lot of research to find that out.
Yes. I mean, as I said, it's something that's very close to my heart, the autism awareness, having found out my son was autistic, and it is a very interesting thing because especially like we're coming from a perspective of comic book fans, we're coming from a perspective of geeks, freaks, and weirdos of the world that are
How dare you? How dare you?
that we're not the accepted people. We're the people in the the dark corner of schools where we're not really looked at and talked to or interacted with, and it's very much a case of there's always been people in society like that. There's always been people pushed to the side, but something I'm really learning about autism is they are the different unique people
Hmm.
that are very different from the world around them. The difference is like where normal everyday people can be almost like browbeaten into behaving in a certain way, and you learn like, oh, I have to behave like this is just the way the world works. They don't, they
Yeah.
can't,
Yeah.
it's impossible for them to you know, they can learn to function around people who are neurotypical,
Mm-hmm.
but they are the way they are, and they
Yeah.
function the way they function, and it's not even a case of like they choose to not behave like everyone else. Like they literally can't.
Yeah.
You know, my son has a very specific way of doing things, and for a lot of the stuff, he cannot do it another way. He cannot be different from who he is, and
Yeah.
and it's absolutely up to us and the rest of society to kind of be aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
And not just with people who are autistic, but with everyone, the fact of like, we're different,
Yeah.
and that's okay. We come from things in a different way, and instead of ridiculing each other, we need to be more accepting and open to it.
Yeah. I think society as a whole, myself included, like, so I have a family member that's autistic as well, and like I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about it, and I think people see it as almost like a defect, like there's something wrong with that person,
Yeah,
like that we need to kind of intervene and we need to fix something because something's broken.
yeah,
Whereas the way that I like the way that you portrayed it, Ahmed, in the story, it's almost like he almost like has like a superpower, just
yeah,
because
Yeah.
he approaches situations differently. I thought that was really cool, and like the more that I learn about autism and the more I interact with people who are artistic, I said artistic, autistic. The more I realize,
Sometimes
like
they are
every
contained.
yeah, every one of them they're completely different. Like you can't, it's not a umbrella autistic. Like everyone who's under that umbrella is an individual, and they display things or they look at things in individual different ways.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, actually, in the Epics of Enkidu, I didn't want just his mythical strength to be his superpower. Actually, I wanted his autistic mind to be his superpower. You know, so it's something I want to put here in the comic. You know, so how he looks at the world, how he analyzes it, how he sees things differently is what makes him you know his superpower, his and the extra thing that the superhero has. Like Superman, he has his bulletproof thing, skin, or whatever. So
Yeah.
many heroes that have that, but he's had the laser eyes and the flying. That other things that distinguish him. Being autism for Enkidu is what distinguish him from other heroes. Is he bulletproof? We're gonna find out in the next issue.
Tune in for the next issue.
Yeah.
but
Definitely,
absolutely, and I think that's an amazing thing to get across as well. Because like, yeah, you could have absolutely focused on Enkidu himself and the fact of like, oh yeah, well this guy had like super strength or whatever, and had this element to him. But there's so much of a difference in his mind, which is beautiful. Like I mean, in its truth, like I've seen it in my own son. You know, like my son was very non-verbal to begin with. He was very no, you know, he didn't speak and respond, and we tried to get him to interact in certain ways, and he couldn't. You know, and it's like even trying to teach him numbers, and then all of a sudden one day he counted from 1 to 10. You know, and
wow.
just out of nowhere, like we literally were talking, and he just went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I literally
Yeah,
turned to
that's the beautiful thing.
and I turned to
That's
my
the beautiful
wife, and I'm like,
thing.
did you teach him that? Did you help him? She went, no. Did you? Like, no. I like, he just picked it up, just out of nowhere. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like, same, even with our front doors, like, you know, my son never, like, you know how you see kids attempting stuff and they don't quite get it and you see them trying stuff? My son opened the front door and ran outside and took off. He'd never shown interest in the front door, never shown interest in the locks, never shown interest in how they worked or anything like that. And then one day my wife shouts up to me, I'm up here at work in my office because I work from home here, and she says like that is like he's taken off. What do you mean he's taken off? Like he just opened the front door and ran. So like we had to get special locks put high up on the door that he can't reach, and because like he just opened the door and ran, and I'm like,
Jeez.
the way his mind just worked this stuff out, and I'm like we often say it, like, you know, I've managed to like child proof my home, but I didn't Matthew proof it. Because my son's mind just
Definitely.
works in such a way, like, you will find stuff in your house that is a problem and that is dangerous that you would never have considered when you have an autistic kid.
Yeah.
Just because of what he's capable of. And like,
With the connection again.
oh, you hear us okay?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, there's just,
Yeah, now I'm hearing. Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
okay, awesome. But yeah, it's like, it's,
Yeah,
I,
sorry. So,
no, it's absolutely fine. I just want to make sure you can hear us. But I love the way you've portrayed that with the Epics of Enkidu, though, and like his mind and the way he processes it. Like, one of the first things that clicked to me of like that is like, okay, we're starting to really see autistic. Is like, even in the first like few shots, the first pages when he's on the train,
yeah.
you see him just sitting on the train, just, you know, looking around, whatever. It's just a normal guy, and the train announcer's like talking over the top. Our next stop is like such and such stop, and you know, and hope you have a great day. Thank you. And he literally responds, "You're welcome," to like the
Yeah.
overhead like tannoy, and I'm like, yeah, that's it, because it's a learned behavior. You learn when someone says thank you to you, you say you're welcome. It's a learned behavior that when autistic kids are growing up, they're taught over and over again. You say you're welcome. That's the social response.
Yeah.
And I like,
Yeah.
and it doesn't register like a difference of like if the overhead speaker says it or someone says it to their face. It's like that's the response you give. And like the moment that you did that was like, for me anyway, that was the first moment of like, okay, we're going to see some interesting things here from autism represented that the normal everyday person just wouldn't think is a thing. You know, like that was something that really stood out to me of like that. Okay, this guy gets it. This guy like is going to put in actual autistic traits. You know, and it's like it seems so simple and so, you know, small, but like it was one of the first things that made me go, yeah, this is going to be an interesting read.
Yeah, I thought only people who have direct contact or even indirect contact to autism would realize that. I
Mm.
placed it in the beginning just before I explained with the the captions that so you would understand that he has autism, you know. And actually, my nephew used to do. He hears any announcement or someone says thank you or hello, he responds even if it's on TV or whatever. So I got that from him. And actually, he was like your kid. He wasn't verbal. He never talked. And I remember the first time he talked was with me. You know, like when he wants something, he doesn't. He just holds your hand, takes you somewhere, and waits. Wait. He doesn't point. He doesn't. So he waits for you to realize what he wants. And the first time he communicated with me, telling me what he wants, actually, is after I took him to this movie Zootopia,
Yeah.
Mm.
um, which he really loved. You know, he really loved Zootopia. And one time he took me again from my hand, and I followed him, you know, like usual. And I stood, and he stood, and there was some kind of a chocolate on the top shelf, and he pointed at it, and he was like, "I want Jumbo Pop," you know, because he's a Brazilian. I want Jumbo Pop. Oh my God! He finally gave it. I was like, ah, finally.
That's
So
hilarious.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's so shocking. He sometimes, surprises me, with his replies, with his comments, and he turned 9, and he started to have this sense of humor, which I really like. You know, like when he, tried to like pretend to be stingy, like try to pretend to offer food for me, and then when I want to take it, he runs away. I like that about him. Yeah, he's yeah. I enjoy to spend every moment with him, and he's actually my muse to the for the comic, So
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
That's superb to hear, and I can't wait to see how he's your muse in future issues and what other stuff we kind of see portrayed like that.
well,
But
yeah, I hope to see them too.
that is absolutely awesome. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on today and just talking about this. I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure
Yeah.
delving into
Absolute
this.
pleasure.
Oh,
Yeah.
pleasure is all mine.
I don't think I had any other questions on my side. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to ask, Nitro, before we
No,
kind
that
of
was
start
it,
wrapping
man.
up.
I just wanted to say it was really cool getting to meet
Yeah.
you and getting to read this first issue.
Yeah, and is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, Ahmed? Any other stuff you wanted to say about the comic, about what's coming up, or to our listeners today? Anything you wanted to put out there?
Well, wouldn't say there's any specific thing I would say. I just hope everyone who picks the comic will enjoy it, like you did, guys. And I just wish to keep writing this comic, and as long as more people like it, I'm gonna keep pushing it. So that's all I could say. And I would like to say thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure.
Yeah,
Really enjoyed it.
thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for taking the time. I know, we've been talking on, on social media for a little bit, and you're a hard man to kind of pin down to get on the show. So thank you for taking time out your busy schedule to just come and talk to us about the Epics of Enkidu. And
Yes.
it's definitely a series I'm definitely going to keep checking out, and I definitely want to see the next issues and what's to come. And
Thank you so much.
and you'll have Comics Necrosis love and support behind the comic as well. When the other issues come out, we'll definitely help in the promotion of that as well, and
Yes.
posting
Yes,
it on our
definitely.
social media and stuff.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
For anyone who is in chat, I'm now just going to post. I have some links here for social media. If I can type the right word, I think it's social. There we go. For the Epics of Enkidu, the social media pages where you can keep up to date with all the stuff that's going on with Epics of Enkidu on Twitter, on Instagram, and there's a Facebook group as well. And then also as well, if you do want to pick it up for yourself, and there once again are the links on Comixology, Amazon Kindle, and Comic House, because it's all digital at the moment. So go ahead, check it out there. It's only a couple of bucks. It's well worth checking out and getting into the series. And also helping support an amazing creator with an amazing cause, for pushing autism awareness. Again, something that's very close to our heart, and something that we're going to be doing ourselves when it comes to our 1 year anniversary stream that we do. We're going to be starting to raise some funds for autism awareness during that as well. So it's something very close to our heart, and we definitely want to support.
And my support too. Thank you so much. Thank you
Cool.
so much for having me.
Thank you
Thanks, Ahmed.
so much, Ahmed. Absolutely appreciate it. We are going to wrap up our show here. I don't know if you had to rush off, Ahmed, or if you want to just hang out while we kind of like just do our little wrap up, or we're going to just raid another channel on Twitch and stuff. If you have to rush off, by all means, you definitely can, but it's just going to take us a minute or two.
Sure, no, I'll stick around for the wrap-up.
No problem. Let me see who is live and who we can go and raid and just show a little bit of love to on Twitch. I think Theologian was on. We can definitely go and show him some love, probably. Yeah, let's go raid Theologian, because it's rare for him to even be on these days, so. Alright guys, we're going to go raid Theologian and drop him some love. So if you're in the chat, hang out with us as we head over there, show him some love, drop him some follows, and go and check out all the links that we've put in chat to go and pick up your own copy. Yep, shout out to the Infinity Bros popping into chat there. Glad you could make it in and be part of it for our special Friday stream. We are going to be back this Sunday at our usual time at 2 o'clock Eastern as we talk to Brandon Hollingsworth from Brainy Pixel about some of his upcoming stuff. So that's going to be our next big one this Sunday. Then Monday night at 10:30 Eastern, I'm going to be continuing my playthrough of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order for Monday night crossplay, so make sure you come and hang out with me then, keep me company as I continually die to things that I shouldn't be dying to in video games. Also, massive shout out to Gamer Grind Co, the sponsor of the podcast, who I've been, drinking throughout the show today. If you want to go ahead and get some amazing coffee, then you can click on their link and check it out and use Comics in the Cross at checkout to save 5%. If you missed any of this episode, it will be getting uploaded onto our YouTube channel, so go ahead and subscribe there if you want to catch up on this again or see any of our archived issues. And also remember to follow us as well on our different social medias and join us on Discord where we keep the conversations going. So guys, that's pretty much it from us today. We are going to head over, raid Theologian, stick around, show him some love. He's a cool dude. I think he's playing Destiny 2 right now. It's a favourite of ours as well, so let's go and show him some love. Take care and have an absolutely amazing day, guys.
See you guys.
Excelsior.